Shirley here with Sirius Talis Moon. So we were stopping at the story about um, Pluto in the seventh house of Trump, and how even the person that tried equal marriage in the time where it was not the usual, um, finds himself again at the juncture where the power balance requires for an equilibrium. And and this is not coming to a man that was, how should I say, that hasn't tried to do the equal relationship business and love before. So there's something incredibly, genuinely and authentically thought-provoking and challenging when we're thinking about the growing prominence of Melania Trump, um, and and the necessity to balance things in a different way than, let's say, before or in the previous marriage, but still not remain in the previous dogma, which is new to both people. Now, that plays a very prominent role when we think about Rahu going Deneb Algedi and Ketu going Magha. Um, if we think about going back to where we came from, or going where everybody is leaving. Um, I don't have Melania Trump's chart on the go with me, but it's also the question of the same woman that said, "Hey, I'm not going with marriage if there is another contention." Might be even running herself someday. Literally going where everybody's leaving, or going to the White House where she herself wanted to go out. And so um, and for Donald Trump himself, it's kind of like revisiting, trying to have an equal business and love relationship from a different point of view, both to the one that didn't work and the one that did work, because everybody's looking like, oh, Melania Trump was traditional. She's a businesswoman in a right of her own, running her own companies, and growing her children. And that went missing by a lot of people that love to put her in one spotlight. And one thing that can be said about people with Venus Uranus is that they can't be relationally categorized with ease, which makes for an intriguing character, whatever one thinks about the person. Um, and this is where Ketu Ketu Rahu here could be accentuating the role of the First Lady as a possible woman president, or an equivalent role. Um, in which she would be required to stand to the post Epstein dossiers standards of running a country. um, and that is, that's a now the Rahu, as Rahu will. I need to erase that picture. Yeah, as Rahu progresses towards Deneb Algedi, we are going to be really having our last call before the Rahu Lilith Pluto eclipses. Now, when you know that when I say, I can't stress that enough, a Peter ring drops. The Rahu Pluto Lilith eclipses are the last call before 2030, where we are going to Ketu Lilith, and whatever woman archetype that is included and accepted, we are left with in spirit and in matter and philosophy and religion. We're going to end up with Venus in Sag. And with Venus Sag, freedom is going to be very important to the woman, as well as philosophy and religion and spirituality. And being a free woman also in that regard. Now, is it going to be the Ghislaine Maxwell who was a free woman and could be a Ghislaine Maxwell and not Ghislaine Epstein by participating in? Or is it going to be another type of Venus, a Mary Magdalene sort of Venus? And that really depends on what will we be able to integrate with the strict conjunction on the decan of the exile from paradise is the first decan of Aquarius. Uh, Me reading excerpt from Austin through Threads of Fate, and and kind of like, well, I have that in mind, because that was my Pluto square. Um, not really knowing which one of my colleagues is rubbing shoulders with the Epsteins to what degree, Masonically speaking. And what did they have to sacrifice to get there? Infant speaking. So, um, now, and considering the fact that previously people couldn't go there without those sacrifices that were to begin with very secluded and very oriented towards people playing into the hands of extortion cults, and then the internet boom, the combination of people not wanting to venture into Me Too land in academia or any sort of even digital academia for any sort of certification, and the availability of certain content that for self studies and the conjoining. And this is where I want to talk business a little bit, because I noticed that the Epstein dossiers are a financial block. The Epstein dossiers are compatible for people that want to retire on debt and leave a legacy of debt. Kind of like Maxwell, Robert Maxwell, that was upturned in a yacht, and then everybody discovered that that grand billionaire was deep in debt, and that's all he had left for the universe to begin with, regardless of his entire affairs. Now, without blaming and judging, in the sense that these people were very vehemently grown into a reality where that was the only thing that worked. There was no venue to make money being benevolent or to even survive being benevolent. And we can no longer enable that while having to take into the consideration that everything we sort the wheat from the chaff from was built within that. Kind of like, I can't blame Charles Montesquieu for not even considering that women will have the right to vote. I also can't adopt Charles Montesquieu without including women in the right to vote. Now, the way that these things work is that people would torture people to loss of sense of self and act through them. And so, um, this is where they would get people to, the people that we see, let's say, doing the weird hand gestures are the people that were tortured and not the people that are doing that, if it makes sense. And this is something to really take into consideration. when we talk about even the Epstein files, but also everything that's been going on social media. The entire show is to try to make it look like it's those people doing that, where in fact the masterminds behind are the ones that are torturing them and so on and so forth. Now, Rahu Deneb Al-Ghedi is really last call before the harsh environment of Lilith Pluto. Now, here's the thing about Lilith: she would not be subjugated. She would kill the babies of the women that were subjugated to prevent subjugation of women, because it is occult rape. Okay? Because if the occultistic rape of women is the occultistic rape of infants, it's the feminine. Lilith doesn't play, she knows that. And this is the deacon of the exile from heaven, or the exile from paradise, which was because basically anything that approached a non-subjugational sexual relations was exiled from heaven. Now, if that's not enough, Saturn is in Aries, which means the motivations behind everything have to do with sovereignty. So Lilith is the woman that would not be subjugated, 70.1. Facing Pluto, 70.2, she's standing in her power in the face of Pluto. Saturn is in Aries, which is about sovereignty, 70.3. Rahu comes into the mix, 70.4, and really making that big, 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 because this is the last go. Everything that wants to subjugate women must die or perish with the entire one world religion. And this is what they don't tell about 2030, because what's being ketued is the subjugation and global slavery in digital cities. Twin cities. Twin cities like Twin Towers, but global. Together with the residues of Lilith that was either imprisoned because she would not be subjugated, and it's kind of given Second World War type of suffragists died, and so on and so forth. So alternatively, alternatively, Lilith standing in her power is successful, and we prevent the entire prisoning. And so the kettling would be of the old infrastructure, the old Wi-Fi, um, the old digital surveillance in cities, the old ideas to have traffic in cities. And then what we are kettling with Lilith is natural and organic, because there is no, if a woman is not subjugated, then Lilith doesn't have to exist as anything other than the counterpart of Adam, and then she can return to be Venus, the woman of union that is based upon freedom. Now, if that freedom is Epstein Maxwell like, then it's not going to look pretty. Because that would bring about the witch hunts for the Maxwells. The lady Maxwells couldn't say, would not be able to say that they were burned on the stake because they were women, and at the same time, it would also not be false. but it would also be for the decapitation of the Epsteins. What was I saying in previous episode? I call it Epstein eclipses because everybody knows that's the headline. Um, now, mommy, recording. Let's find a compatible picture for that. It's not the egg. It's not the Dead Sea, although it could be. Um, let's do that one. With Alcyone, I think that's kind of relevant. Doesn't work. Why? Thank you. Okay. Um, Now, here is another thing that really brings about this issue of declination in women's rights, which I do believe that is going to be having a very different chapter with Ketu Magha. And this is where we have had a century where women were climbing up the ladder, but some of them way more Epstein-like than or Maxwell-like, and without judging, it's kind of like that's the way things happen for them. Like naturally, the reason that Ghislaine Maxwell was Ghislaine Maxwell was because she was tortured to loss of sense of self, had no way to get out, and had no way to die, and then she began to desire power over everything. Kind of like male tyrants. It's kind of like that. That's the exact point about the equity of women also being human. Is that that shit works on women too? And this is where our feminism was looking Maxwell like. And that was the respect of the feminine came through the dishonoring of the feminine. And by the way, for men, it's kind of like the same. They go through feminization as degradation rituals to be accepted as men. So this is where our our feminism and everything built on it was looking that way. And this is where definitely women got the right to vote. We had way more things that we didn't have previously. Um, a lot of women didn't have to think about poisoning the husband. And now there is an attempt to ban all that. Now, this is also bringing me to the point of up leveling in business and the things that happen upon a bigger embarking, and which can be very relevant to those that have the Rahu Ketu reversals or placements in Magha Nakshatra, because they're going through a certain crisis, and the objective of this crisis is not to demote them, not to headhunt them, not to witch hunt them, not to decapitate them, but simply to refine something so that it stands the test of time. And so, if I'm thinking about when I was just trying to start my business as aromatherapist, obviously what I meant was not what the Epstein dossiers were thinking about people that, let's say, study aromatherapy and took break from the academia because of the Epstein dossiers. So, um, and what my taxes would fund prior to, let's say, 2023 would not necessarily be what I had intended as a business. Even when I do believe in, let's say, the possibility of taxation to do good. To the people that say, oh, don't pay taxes, well, amazing. Find a way to accommodate for people that are recovering, unable to work, or provide them euthanasia. And yet, when people actually want to live, they should be accommodated for. Now, now this is where um, with that up leveling in business, there is a refinement. And this is where I started to talk about, oh, where everybody was seeing things as something as that's a part of business or being business. This is where we are beginning to purge that. Rape is not a part of business anymore. And to the people that are going Magha, this keto is a crisis of refinement. It's not set to take away the legacies and achievement. It's set to purge anything that was reliant on people being raped, enslaved, or cultistically siphoned, so that the legacy can stand the test of time, not be confiscated by the state or by the competing empire that ruins the cultural facets and richness. And hey, when that culture was way too rape based or occult rape based as the pillars of culture, we can't cry about that culture being destroyed. I mean, we can, but you know, however, when we purge the occultistic rape and rapey culture, we can both enjoy the culture that was up until then, because I have no problem reading Charles Montesquieu when I can vote as a woman. I wouldn't open Charles Montesquieu book where if I couldn't vote as a woman, I would come up with a different theory, and people tell me, hey, that's like Charles Montesquieu. I was like, well, what does he say about voting? Oh, that's not Charles Montesquieu. We can't have a Dirac for me if in his world I can't vote. Which means that this is my idea and it's my patent. Which probably he stole by occultistically raping a woman anyway. Plagiarism and occultistic rape are one and the same. And so enabling occultistic rape harms the ability to connect with one's authentic and original nature of creation. And sacrificing people to be raped and so on and so forth is disconnecting with one's original nature of creation. Now, when that wasn't the intent, then that is the thing to tend to and refine and correct. If that was the intent, now is the time to go short on it, particularly when people want to launch something that they're proud on being their idea, or let alone their original idea, when origin and rape don't go together. The rape of someone is the erasure of their origins and roots and the attempt to plagiarize their ideas. And here is the thing. If somebody was stepping out of the academic research around the Me Too, following writing satire just about that, believing the person that tried to traffic them might not be, how should I say that, investment speaking, disregarding their testimony might not be in, if I was like a patent company, that would not be my strategy to not believe the people that have been spending a decade of their life saying no, being consecutively targeted, attacked, raped because of that. Ketu Magha is just that crisis. And the people that traded something to build something around that Magha that was enabling occultistic rape at the very least, traded something that once in a lifetime might not actually yield, which is not a bad thing. They can still go short on it. They don't have to go short on their original idea, but their original idea would shine brighter both as their idea and as their original and as an idea in general when they take the raping other people from the equation, whether it was by their intent or not. Now, um, we also want to think about the fact that a growing business, because Magha here is, for most people, they're not being crowned in the sense that, monarchy. It's mostly going to be the business elite of the Epstein type of thing and the passing of the torch. And this is where we want to think about the fact that when a business is growing and Rao is about to go Deneb Algadi, that business should be growing with the people, not at the expense of people not having houses without being raped or raping. It's high standards. Of course, it's high standards. It's one of those nakshatras, like Mula, like Rohini, like Magha, like the Nabalgiri itself. Okay, people that have, I've met heaven in Rohini, not in Rohini, I'm wrong in Rohini. I've met heaven in Mula Nakshatra, and there is a shit ton of things in my life that I said no because I knew that taking the easy road there would be the hardest. Taking the easy road there would mean being rubbing shoulders with the Epsteins. Those are the Mula Nakshatra, Magha Nakshatra, Rohini Nakshatra. Well, Rohini has a little bit of a fascinating story, but Mula Nakshatra and Magha Nakshatra, they are nakshatras of transmutation. The wealth that comes there is a wealth of transmuting things. It's not if we create, how should I say that? A while ago, I was suspending using myrrh essential oil because I was looking to buy from a business that doesn't purposefully wound the trunk of the tree to get the sap. And this is for a very simple reason. The resin is healing naturally. If I want to heal, then that's not the energy I want to work with when I work holistically with the resin. And this is something to keep in mind with entire Neptune Mars. It's transmutation nakshatra, but what we want is not to wound to heal, because this creates moldy stagnation that can literally extinguish humanity and the ecosystem. But actually to heal, to heal. And this is taking us from dark ages to the golden ages. Is everybody getting that calling to go there? No. Am I speaking to everybody? No. I'm speaking to the people that resonate. And it's usually so. While one person might be aggravated at a certain juncture, that that message is relevant to a million other people that were thinking to go there, about to go there, began to go there, and their intuition, something inside them said, there must be something more, but it's like, hey, that's a really big opportunity, and the time is now, and I'm not getting younger, and so on and so forth. And then, oh, there's that person that calls about that thing. So if only one viewer in 100 gets it, fine. Vince Gilligan is very valid for this type of message. If only one person in a billion gets it, fine. That's sometimes all the one person we need. And this brings me to the last topic, which is going back to the revolutionaries of the Sedna Aries type. Those are people that, with Sedna Aries conjunction, we had it around the Me Too, and with Sedna Uranus conjunction now, we have it basically at this moment. Sedna Aries was a once in 5.5 centuries. To the people that thought that the Me Too went too far and it's just a phase, and blah 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 blah. Okay. Also, when the French Revolution happened, it also took 300 years to have something like it that resembles a democratic regime. One of my complaints was, how much far ahead of my time am I? And I said it right before the Me Too, because I need to know if I'm gonna be this lonely in that position for. And this is, it was only very partially alleviated around the Me Too, because none of that tended to the occultistic. Everybody talked about cults and mind control, but not about the occultistic, which I did not even know how to name. I was in academia, mind you. And I was not Dr. Angela Puka. I was not studying the occult. I didn't even know to name that. Um, and so, with Uranus said now, if you are having something that looks like out of this world to never in humanity's history, Falcon, it's in the chart. Once in 12 millennia is now. And if it sounds unprecedented and you're doubting yourself, don't. You're in touch with the spirit of the time. It's that once in 12 millennia. And this is also where I want to talk the challenges of the type of people, and we're going to have in 15 years Neptune conjoining Aries, the type of people who set the cornerstone to something where they really don't know how much of it they will live to see the results and the fruits of. This can be people with Neptune midheaven, Neptune ascendant, Neptune in the 12th house, 12th house Pisces, um, or something like I said now, people who are born with, let's say, Gemini ascendant have Sedna in the 12th house. So this is where if they have things that look like they don't even know where it's coming from, that's their one. That's their once in a 12 millennia. Um, I have Venus in a conjunction. Definitely not something I would prescribe for a Taurian spirit of joy, pleasure, coffees, and sushi. Um, but it is that once in 12 millennia type of thing, and we also want to consider that the people that have Taurus ascendant have Aries in the 12th house. Granted that they are born in this century. I mean, this and the previous one, um, most of the previous one, and so they are bringing the once in a 500 issue to once in 520 or 550 years to the table from the 12th. So these are people that can completely shift how we think about anything 12th house, but also anything Aries and anything sovereignty. One of the astrologers with Taurus ascendant is Adam Ellenbus, that when everybody was talking about sovereignty, he was like, well, I don't know what I think about this sovereignty discourse. And he does have Aries in the 12th house in Aries, which means that he would have something that shifts the notion of the time regarding to Aries. And and um, this is really one of the things that can be where a person may have even challenges, but but they're setting a cornerstone that they might not live to see the entire fruition of, even if they live till 200, because it's a 500 and something cycle. So of course, tremendous isolation, upheaval, um, are a part of these placements. Not in the sense that and I do not glorify those at all, even. That being said, I also don't dismiss those, and I also don't dismiss what it comes to bring to the world. For those of you that are asking, why am I alive? Why am I here? I want you to look at your Neptune, your Aries, and your Sedna placements, because this cornerstone was important enough to come here, even if it's kind of like all that remains. There's not a lot of people who would read the Bible and say, well, there's no consensual sex there. We need to change it. Oh, but look what happened to the Huguenot. Yeah, because they didn't change it. But there were women rights. But look at the scripture. Hey, I was not here to read the scriptures. People are like, everybody should read the scripture. They read the scripture. And the scripture, put in the scripture, here, the scripture. That's it. Okay, let's read the goddamn thing. There's no consensual sex there. That can kind of explain a lot of birthing traumas, relational issues, intergenerational genocides. But the person to whom Aries is crossing their Mercury, there isn't any cells left in the body to allocate to cancerous tumors by not saying that. But the first thing that came into my mind during the Me Too was not, oh, women are harassed. It was like, and although it does move, this is a scientific stagnation. I was on the money, not even knowing to name the thing, which is occultistic rape. And I was like, I noticed that the people that are raped and sexually harassed are also plagiarized. I'm like, that's very weird. But I was trying to work on having non-attachment relation with putting my issue, with putting my creation out there, and not to fear it being plagiarized. Um, all the while, I was discovering that wait a second, there is a mechanism to that thing. And by the way, the people that were still ritually abused, they would have a difficulty in discernment that could cause um, also cases of unintended plagiarism because the connection to the origin is established through abolishing rape. Now, the big missing for the people who plagiarize is that they probably have a lot of great ideas that they never came in touch with because they were in this being raped and raping cycle. Um, so the Uranus Senna will definitely bring the once in 12 millennia revolutionary thinkers. And all of them, whether it's the scientific endeavors, um, even Copernicus, he was paying attention to the spiritual notions of gravity and the fact that the church was getting it wrong. He was almost downright plain telling us that the occultistic rape calls the church to see the earth as the sun is revolving around the earth. This person sensed waves of gravity. I cannot make it up. Rahu, Neptune, materializing waves, and with the sextile to Pluto of gravity. Materializing waves, what waves? Of gravity, but this is also political waves, it's also economic waves. Anything Pluto. And he lived through, I think, a Neptune sextile Pluto. Uh, and this is where there are the people busy in humiliation rites, and then there are the people that are actually revolutionizing. And the people busy oppressing the people that are actually revolutionizing are only adding to the power of the road not taken, in the sense that while they were striving to get the opposite, they're basically contributing to the Uranus Sedna revolution. Because it's kind of like, hey, you're creating this big lovely thing out there, amazing, let's get the Epsteins out of the way so you can actually stand the test of time. Okay, I'm not going to say it like more than 7 times. I'm like, let's talk about it on a grander scale, like Uranus said now, once in 12 millennia opportunities. Let's see who are the people that actually resonate with that. Like, oh, but there are this reason and that, all of these reasons are correct, but we ain't got, like, maybe we ain't got time for that. Maybe what I say about Uranus Senna might resonate with you or not. I don't know. Like, but I definitely ain't got time to combat trying to oppress me on things that that I don't even argue with. Now, this is where the Uranus Sedna people, and why am I saying the Uranus Sedna people? Also the Chiron Aries now. But the Uranus Sedna is really a once in 12 millennia meets 84-year cycle. So they're probably going to be a timestamp to something that is every once in 84 years. And this is where people want to be on the side of Sedna that was not the trafficking side. um, because to get the best of Sedna, to get the best of Aries, we need to be inclusive. To get the best of Sedna, we need to basically prevent people from being energy siphoned, trafficked, raped, or whatnot. It's kind of like with Sedna, even if the only thing you can do is talk, speak up. So definitely if you're honing on a Sedna Uranus election or a Sedna Uranus conjunction election, um, again, those things, because it's a once in 84 years cycle, there's a lot of time to refine, there's a lot of time um, to capitalize on that and correct and make the adjustments and so on and so forth. It can't be done with the vengefulness side of Magha or with the ego related side of Magha. And at the same time, to combat that ego usually takes not transcendence, which is normally a form of bypassing, but radical acceptance of that ego. Because what we seek is not transcendence, but actually embodiment or the soul sitting in the open heart, which happens with radical acceptance of the places where the heart was not being, how should I say that? When people were not being in their heart centered self, where people were being in their ego, and the radical acceptance of that, and even the radical acceptance of not being able to radically accept that. Now, um, and Uranus Sun or Uranus Regul or Uranus Magha hard aspect create a crisis that unfortunately can challenge radical acceptance. Um, and I hope that this way of treating that and tending to that can be some sort of remediation or some sort of alleviation. Because with Uranus setting intention is good enough. And this is also pertaining to the Uranus Sedna. Um, Now, another thing is to understand that where something came about and there was, let's say, a clash or a backlash or a conflict and so on, those things usually not stem from not caring, not appreciating, or not seeing the merit of. And this is also something that can really assist on the embarking into the Magha where Ketu is in Magha. It's very important, particularly with Uranus Sedna, not to even think that swiping raping methods under the rug is going to solve the problem. Now, if Gemini, for Scorpio ascendants, Gemini would be 8th house. For Cancer ascendant, Gemini would be 12th house. I don't see it as a 6th house issue, although it can arise. This would be for, let's say, Capricorn ascendants. And for Virgo ascendants, this is 10th house. So we had 8th house, 12th house, 10th house. Of course, Gemini is the first house. And so Gemini might find themselves being the topic of discussion in some way, depending on where their Mercury, or if Mercury is in his home sign, they can find themselves being the topic of discussion. Also, ascendant Aries, because Mercury is now in Aries. And this is where they would have to wonder why are they the topic of discussion, and usually it's either because they made something big that they have like a mug placement, or that what they are doing, or the way they are running themselves, or the way their life is going is at odds with this Ketu Rahu Magha Deneb Algedi, or even squaring, if it is at the outright square or square by sign. And this is where, if it's kind of like, if it's an occult and they're like, oh, they're an occultist and they're not practicing those, evils, um, or they're an occultist and they were practicing those evils and they actually want to abolish that practice without abolishing practicing occult, or something that is negating the process of the embarking into Magha, but even the dematerializing in its present form. They might be at the point of playing the devil's advocate regarding certain issues, but there is something with the ascendant sun and moon in Gemini, the sun is pertaining to them in that regard. Eighth house is more, the Scorpio ascendant is more what was swiped under the rug with the Sedna. Now, Sedna is transiting, which means it's not a natal placement. For ascendants Libra, most of them have had Sedna in Taurus. If they were born as of the late 60s, they would have had Sedna in Taurus, and they are used to processing this energy as an 8th house. The Scorpio ascendants are new to that, and they get that with Uranus. So a little bit of grace for Scorpio ascendants out there, because they get everything that they didn't even know they didn't know, that they didn't even think they were swiping under the rug, accumulating for 12 millennia and a cycle of 84 years. Boom, out, they can't hide it anymore. So some grace for Scorpio ascendants, because this can be, think about the exposure of Epstein dossiers versus ritual abuse survivors, and many people going like, oh, wait a second, my sister-in-law probably was abused as an infant. Wait a second, are they a Maxwell? They didn't come out as ritual abuse survivor, but are they? Are they going to come out as a survivor? And so, and all that while the person is not even being aware of what's going on. Because 8th house, it's kind of like, we knew that there is something. Now with 12th house, it can be, it can literally be like, that person is the last to know that they were ritually abused as an infant, and therefore, and it could have been even their victims that tell them that. but it's on their blind spot, and then they might think that somebody is coming to get them when they're like, no, dude, I'm your testimony. Yeah, I could have died, but um, 10th house 10th house is all out in the open, and yet unless there's like a Mars there that rules the 8 for Virgos, um, it's going to be on the one hand definitely public issues, but on the other hand, unless there's something that, let's say, a Jupiter that rules the 4th, or a Sun that rules the 12th, or Mars that rules the 8th out there, then I don't see it as that, like, of course it's Sedna Uranus, of course it's that much of an issue, but I don't see it as like having to go into the thing swiped under the rug. Of course, Virgo ascendants have other transits like Saturn's in the 8th house, Neptune in the 8th house. There's a lot of things there, but from Sedna, unless there are other placements, that might not be the place of concern for them. Um, and for the 6th house, which would be Capricorn ascendant, this is where their physical health issues that can be inflammation, nervous system related issues, they can finally and suddenly discover that that's connected to something that happened that is a Sedna story related. Um, Up leveling in the 10th house, the 6th house, and for Taurus ascendant, this would be the 2nd house. This is where they're, through their skill or through their vocation, there may be an up leveling that requires dealing with a Sedna story. Or people that suddenly notice through the vocation or through what they do for a living. It's also a Hades house, so anything that's coming from the 12th could be felt physically in the Hades house, and um, this is where they might be having those experiences, or through their vocation or doing what they do, kind of like it is revealed that, hey, that means that structurally they would have been ritually abused then, and this is kind of like a sudden reveal. And with Uranus Sedna, it's usually something that we weren't thinking that anybody would understand, suddenly being understood, or suddenly being seen, or something that we wouldn't think um, would be revealed, because this Gemini is suddenly in the air. If I think about the case where my parents were thinking that the family pictures would be something that they would take with them, let's say, to the grave, and kind of like the people like in the family knew, but outside it wasn't like an open thing, and then they pushed me to take the pictures or the family pictures away from the house when I was moving out, and then I had to flee that place because of basically trafficking agendas there, and everything was left there, including the family pictures of me, my mom, my dad, and my dad, and two dogs. So this is a classic Sedna. It's a classic Sedna ingress into Gemini, and Uranus Sedna, which is all secrets in the open. Um, I think also about case of the story that we had with Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky, where Monica Lewinsky wasn't even thinking of anything, and then her friend was exposing everything really in a way that Monica Lewinsky wasn't even thinking.